Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. As I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. Who is president matters. This was demonstrated most fully yesterday in the hearings over Pete Hegseth's nomination to be Secretary of Defense. Who presidents choose to serve in their cabinet and to run major operations makes all the difference in the world. Now, I'm not going to talk about Hegseth's history. You all are familiar with it. But I do want to talk about a responsibility defined by the Constitution that is assigned to members of the United States Senate to advise and consent. Part of the job of being a United States Senator is to consider nominations for cabinet positions and to vote for or against those nominations. Those issues involving each nominee should be decided by a senator who has feelings after investigation about a candidate for the cabinet. Now remember that in this case, what we are witnessing is Republicans basically saying, we don't care about the facts, we don't care about the opposition. What we care about is affirming a choice made by President-elect Donald Trump. This will apply to all of the cabinet positions. Pam Bondi is now testifying on the question of whether or not she will be confirmed as Attorney General. Let me remind you that Pam Bondi is an election denier. She denied the outcome of the election in 2020. This is a consistent pattern that we are going to see in terms of nominations. Now, let's be clear. The Republicans have 53 votes in the United States Senate. That is enough to confirm, any nominee by Donald Trump. But is the Senate acting in the interests of the American people? Or are they acting in a completely different manner, voting according to party loyalty? Running the Pentagon is a big job. And Hegseth, who is a military veteran, decorated military veteran, a man who has been a military affairs commentator on Fox News, came to the attention of Donald Trump because of his presence on television. And we know that Donald Trump likes people who can present themselves well. Let me be clear, there's nothing wrong with that. You want to have someone who is articulate, firm, and knowledgeable in terms of running any major American cabinet department. But is Hegseth knowledgeable? They got hung up yesterday on the question of his personal conduct. And I understand that. Personal conduct has a lot to do with this. But what about the vital issues facing the next Secretary of Defense? Issues involving troop placement, Navy deployment, military action in various areas, familiarity with the administrative needs within the Defense Department. What about all of that? And clearly, if Hegseth had been appointed press spokesman for the Pentagon, I don't think there would have been much objection. He could do that job. But the question is he qualified to be Secretary of Defense? Now, put all that aside and consider what it means when you have a party line vote. That's right. When Republicans make the determination that this is how they're going to go come hell or high water. And by the way, that applies to Democrats in a similar situation. No, there is a need now to refocus on what the function is of advise and consent. That's the real question here. And senators need to face up to their responsibility. It is equally important that we consider the fact that it is the President of the United States who makes nominations for the cabinet and for judgeships and for so many different things. The president really is a critical figure. And maybe, just maybe, the issue of who Donald Trump or Kamala Harris would have named to various positions should have been an issue in the campaign. But it was not. And so now we face a real battle that really is over before it begins. Because if the Senate abdicates, advise, and consent, there's nothing left, is there? So this will be a process that will reveal the independence of the Republican Party. I have cited before the statement by Donald Trump Jr. on the Ellipse on January 6th, when he stood and he said, "This is no longer the Republican Party. It is the party of Donald Trump." And that brings me to yet another issue, and that is Jack Smith's report, which has been issued, at least in part. Jack Smith's conclusion is that Donald Trump did, in fact, try to obstruct the process of democracy in 2020. He makes the claim, rightly or wrongly, that if this had gone to trial, Donald Trump would have been convicted. This is an important statement by an independent counsel who has made his conclusions public. Donald Trump didn't want those conclusions made public, and of course, it now is an issue which is moot, except in the eyes of history. When we elect a president of the United States, or when we vote for a candidate for president, we'd better consider the fact that the ultimate determination is that rendered by history. History will not look kindly on Donald Trump for what happened on January 6th. And history, I believe, will attest to the fact that what Donald Trump has done in nominating individuals for various jobs, well, it may be consistent with what Donald Trump wants, and the American people may have voted for it, but I don't think it's good for America. And that's the question that each and every United States senator, when they vote on these cabinet nominees, will have to make. It's not a question of whether you're loyal to a president. It's whether you're loyal to the Constitution and whether you are willing to execute your duties effectively. So let that be the word of caution. So now that we've had this discussion, I want to listen to what Pam Bondi says, the nominee for Attorney General, the so-called Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States. Will somebody ask her about the statements she has made, which clearly are not consistent with fact? I hope so. And then the real question, will it make a difference to Republican senators? Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. Make sure to follow along and let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand, which is, of course, our goal. You can interact with me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or by emailing me. And of course, I love hearing from you. And now, my deep appreciation to the wonderful producer of this podcast, Gogo Zoger. She makes it possible each day for us to share these moments. And I will be back tomorrow with more of Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you then.